Using project.
That's my.
Aligned with, I think it's.
I know it's.
Will you roll call please?
Sure. And we have to, Mr. Butler.
Here.
Ms. Brown.
Here.
Ms. Osmond.
Here.
Mr. Eiley is absent. Mr. Stannis is absent. Mr. McFadden
Here.
and Webster's here. Okay.
You all please stand and we can say the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is review of the agenda. Does anyone have any comments regarding the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
What's for it? And we all remove. Pardon me,
Don't ask if everybody approves.
does anyone approve?
Aye.
Thank you. This is my second time running a meeting, so forgive me a little. So, now we'll review the meeting minutes from March. First page, does anyone have any comments? Second page, any comments? Third page. I have a question on here, under communications. E, the last line says suggest using Oasis rather than AutoCamp in discussions. I'm not sure what that's referring to.
Oh, AutoCamp is no longer involved with that property, it's Oasis. So therefore not referring it to AutoCamp as we are,
Okay.
so that's what it was.
All right.
At that last meeting, I was thinking, wouldn't it be more effective to refer to addresses rather than names that change?
I don't know that we'll all know what the project is if we use the address.
Okay.
We can consider, we can do both.
It's just a little confusing in this case. I didn't know what Oasis was or coming to this.
That's true. Our new member commissioner, I understand it, but the community, they know it as AutoCamp. So they know exactly where it is. So certainly understand that.
So when Oasis took over AutoCamp's position, they're still bound by all the ramifications and designs of the original approval.
Yes, because it's a conditional rezoning.
We haven't received any formal notification of the name change. Just letting you know.
Okay. And page 4, any comments of the meeting minutes? Approved.
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now. Today's April 15th, 6 o'clock. This is our regular meeting of the Planning Commission and held pursuant to notice for the purpose of hearing, considering, and acting on certain proposed amendments to the zoning chapter.
Giving you the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment. The Planning Commission requests that speakers respect the 3-minute time limit for individual comments and the 5-minute limit, 5-time limit for an individual speaking on behalf of the group. This is not a question and answer session. It's an opportunity to voice your thoughts with the Planning Commission.
Said anybody that's interested to come up to the podium, we need to state your name and address. Y'all staying here.
Okay.
Dickey, 6108 Old Allegan Road, Saugatuck. I was on the planning, or the group that was helping to plan ordinances to maintain the rural character of the community, following the master plan, and I'm now on the park commission. I just want to say that I'm very grateful that you have preservation and land conservation plan on your agenda. That's what I'm here to watch and listen for. I think we have lots of input from the community that really wants land conservation and preservation, particularly if it's possible to have public access and trails. When we Park Commission went for a village, it was passed overwhelmingly to give support for land conservation. and for trails. So I just want to commend you for having it on your schedule and that we hope to keep working on projects to support this in the year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak, please raise your hand. Going once. Going twice. No.
Okay,
So they want to.
we will now close the public comment. Thank you. And the first item under new business is this public hearing. We have 6 different items to consider. The first one, Elaine, would you like me to read through each of these?
Yes, read through what is on the agenda. I don't have to read through the ordinance.
Okay. So A, public hearing to consider an ordinance to amend sections 8.20, 12.70, 18.20, and 22.10 of the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance to clarify the definition of structure and to correct some miscellaneous typos. Are there any comments?
Well, I'm happy to just go through an overview and you have looked at these before. This is a package and I know they're listed as separate public hearings, but there are various ordinance amendments. Many of them are cleanup items, things that we've noticed after taking this book for a test run. And the other one kind of later in the list is that process in section or a new section 7.140 to require grading plans. That was something our chairperson requested as well, and many of you. Just if there isn't a full site plan or an intended use, if you're doing a large scale grading project, you would have to come to the planning commission for review. So that's the item F on your agenda. Item A is just correcting some typos, and I even noticed in this ordinance, structure was misspelled. But we're just kind of clarifying there were incorrect references, and that's the first 2, just incorrect references. The third one was structure. We were adding retaining walls and other similar walls and stormwater basins to that definition. We've had requests for those items come up and we haven't known, well, is it a structure? It's not a building, but it's not listed in the definition. So we wanted to put that in there. I can go through all of these at once. Would that help? Or do you want me to go
One at a time. I think one at a time. So
that's the first
she's
one.
opened up.
Yeah, then we'll open the hearing.
The hearing on just that particular, ordinance, and then we'll go to B.
Okay.
Yes, item A.
We'll open the hearing for that one.
Yes.
So I think you would ask, does anybody want to speak on it? Give it a second if nobody approaches, so we can do we close the public hearing
And
after
then
that
vote.
one. Then we'll open up and keep going.
Yes, these are all recommendations to the town.
And we have to vote on each individual one.
Yeah.
So we will then make a motion to on A and then we will go to B, do it all over again for B.
Okay, that's what you want to do it. Or, okay.
So the public hearing in this matter is now declared open. Any persons who wish to comment or address the planning commission or otherwise question or comment on the matter will be recognized. As well as anyone that's attending this Zoom. So are there any comments? Okay, so we now close the public hearing.
I would move to accept the amendments to the, recommend to the Board of Trustees, amendment to the ordinance of amend sections 8.20, 12.70, 8.20, and 22:10.
18.2.
Did I say, did I,
You said 8.
I'm sorry, 18.
I'll support that. Do you need a roll call vote for that?
You need a roll call?
Roll call.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mr. Butler?
Yep.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Isaac Stanton, Mr. Sandus, Mr. McFadden,
Yes.
and Webster, yes. Okay. All in favor?
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Roll call. Aye. So we got that one. Okay. So we move on to B.
Indeed. It's a public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment to section 3.40 of the township zoning ordinance to change the side setback in the R3 zoning district from 10 feet to 15 feet.
All right, this is a change that we had talked about with the lakeside overlay. In our ordinance prior to this one, the side setbacks were a calculation. And then where the two sides added up had to equal a certain amount. And in that calculation, the side yard could be less than 15 feet. That was changed in this new ordinance, and the goal is to change it back to the way it was for the 15.
So is there anybody who, in the audience, who wishes to address us?
We have to-
Well, I thought you did, okay.
The public hearing in this matter is now declared open. Any persons who wish to comment or address the planning commission or otherwise question and comment on this matter will first be recognized. Will be recognized. Would anyone have any comments? Zoom? No comments?
Close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
You want to pull the trigger this time? I'll just keep supporting you.
Yes.
Move to recommend to the Board of Trustees the amendment to section 3.40 of the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance.
Support.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Yep.
Mr. Butler.
Yep.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Osmond.
Yes.
Eileen and Stannis are gone the whole time, so I'm not gonna say their names again, if that's okay. Okay, Mr. McFadden.
Yes.
And Webster, yes.
Okay. Item D reads, public hearing to consider an ordinance to amend section 14.60 of the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance to provide that the township's low impact development standards apply to all developments requiring site plan review.
Currently, this requirement is applicable to, I think, multifamily. And we've seen that with other developments, this type of standard would be beneficial, and it's consistent with our master plan that has a focus on low impact development. So we wanted to include all development requiring site plan review.
Public hearing in this matter is now declared open. Any persons who wish to comment or address the planning commission? Then the public hearing is now closed.
One comment in regards to the ordinance is standards up above, and the third line is, there's a typo.
Yeah.
You see it? It's in the bold, upper page standards. Yeah. Without a correction, and I didn't see the other ones. I recommend to the Board of Trustees the amendment of section 14.60 of the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance.
Support.
Mr. Butler,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Osmond,
Yes.
Eileen Stanis are absent. Mr. McFadden,
Yes.
and Webster, yes.
Item D, public hearing to consider an ordinance to amend sections 8.180 and 8.300 of the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance to modify the special use criteria for mineral extraction and mobile food units.
Right. I'm gonna open the section in my book. For mobile food units, our ordinance didn't have any parameters for how long they could be established. So we wanted to put in that time limit. And then we also didn't have any parameters on the hours of operation, as well as where the generator could locate, and some of our most of our commercial areas abut residential. So we were concerned that if that generator is operating into the wee hours of the night or real close to the property line, that might cause a disturbance. So that is why we addressed that one. For the excavation item, we wanted to make sure that we wanted to make sure we're actually removing this line number 2, that that incidental excavation. We've had a situation where there is an operator looking to on site, and they are excavating and moving gravel around and bringing gravel to the site, but for on-site use. So they're bringing it in for on-site use. We didn't want that type of activity to be excluded from the rules and regulations of the mineral extraction chapter of the ordinance.
The only thing that I have in regards to mobile food units, and I'm a supporter of it because it's happening all over the place, is not to exceed 90 days. That means it's only, say, June, July, August. What happens to maybe May, September, October? Can it be renewed? Is it
They
renewable?
would get a temporary use permit, and we do have a renewal option with those temporary uses.
Okay, so then therefore, even though it says not to exceed 90 days, we don't want to put the word renewable in there, or is it? Do they know that it is able to be renewed? I would read that as I can't renew it.
It might be helpful to add the phrase, unless renewed for a second 90-day period.
Okay, I mean, that seems reasonable to me, because if you have a really nice May, they may start in May. And if you have a really nice September. And is it 90 days executive? Yeah, consecutive, or is it not just 90 days when they're there? Like,
Sure, it's consecutive.
Yeah.
is it by
it's
week?
consecutive. I think it would be consecutive.
Okay. So if I miss a week, but I'm still within the 90 days, okay?
Does anyone else have questions or comments? The public hearing on this amendment is now closed.
You're spoiling me, I'm loving this.
Yeah, really. Move to approve, recommendation to the, Board of Trustees, with the amendment of, under mobile, food unit number 8, that is add the word renewable for the additional 90 days, is that what we're gonna say?
How about unless renewed on a timely basis? Or subject to renewal on a timely basis?
You have to ask Lenny what we should put in there.
Like,
Is there a renewal? Well, there probably is not a renewal in there now, there's not a time limit.
We could, if you make a recommendation for how you want that renewal, And then we can work on the precise language with the attorney before it goes to the board.
Okay, so, and the thought is that they would have the ability to renew for another additional 90 days, is really what it is. We're saying so that they could have 180 days total. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, amendment, to the Board of Trustees, okay.
Support.
Roll call, sorry. Mr. Butler?
Yep.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Osmond?
Yes.
And Steve is absent. Mr. McFadden?
Yes.
And Webster, yes.
The public hearing on this amendment is now closed. Next item E, public hearing to consider an ordinance to amend section 7.120 of the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance to private streets that are required to be paved. Must use MDOT 21A specification aggregate.
This was a request from our township engineer. This aggregate type is more fine than the 22A that was in our previous version of the ordinance.
Is there cost ramification to it?
No, the ramification is that that gravel type results in a more durable road surface.
21A versus the other.
Are there any further questions or comments?
You have to open the public hearing on the following day.
Yes, I do. The public hearing on this matter is now declared open. Any persons who wish to comment or address the planning commission on this matter will be recognized.
Can we do it from here? I just have a question, right? Do you have to do the whole thing? I
Yeah.
feel-
Look here, Jake.
And state your name and address, please.
Yes. Jane Dickey, 6108 Old Allegan Road, Saugatuck Township. I'm just wondering whether there are better grade levels than 21A, and if you want to limit it, that they can't be better. And if not, should it say at least 21A?
21A or better? I don't feel that I have the knowledge, I'm not the township engineer to say one way or the other. I understand the comment, I just can't answer that.
Well, the amendment, it does say they must have at least 6 inches of the MDOT 21A. So you kind of are indicating you at least, they can go deeper if they wish.
Correct.
I guess if that's something that the engineer, I'll let, whatever we close this, I'll make the motion and suggest that if the engineer thinks that modification would be helpful, that we include that in the recommendation, but I can't make that motion during public hearing. So is anybody else want to speak on it? I suggest we close the public hearing on it.
Okay, the public hearing on this amendment is now closed.
You could probably add a phrase at the end of that sentence, that ends with compact base unless otherwise approved by the township engineer.
That's my motion. I'll move to approve, subject to that modification. And recommended to the township board for adoption.
So where are you gonna put that?
So that sentence, not the last sentence, but the one before it. So the compact base. Except if required to be paved by private streets that serve less than 10 lots, need not be paved, but they must be at least 6 inches of MDOT 21A specification aggregate upon a compact base, comma, unless otherwise approved by the township engineer.
Okay. I like it. Support. Okay, we have a motion and support with the amendment to section 7.12 with the additional compound statement. Mr. Blackburn,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Osmond, yes. Eileen Stannis are absent. Mr. McFadden?
Yes.
I'm sure yes. Okay.
On to item F. This is a public hearing to consider an ordinance to add a new section 7.140 to the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance to require and establish standards for the review of grading plans.
Yes, I mentioned this earlier. This is a new section, where by, any site work that includes mass grading, which is just defined as a substantial alteration of the existing topography of the site using heavy equipment. If any of that is occurring, a grading plan would be required to be reviewed by the township. Either planning commission, it's submitted to the township planner, and then it's referred to the planning commission. The stormwater permit would be reviewed by the township engineer. So there would be some oversight on that site modification.
Public hearing in this matter is now declared open. Any persons who wish to comment or address the planning commission? No. The public hearing on this amendment is now closed.
Go ahead.
No, well, I would move to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to add a new section 7.140 and a new definition of mass grading to the Saugatuck Township zoning ordinance.
Support.
Butler.
Yep.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Osmond.
Yes.
Eileen Stannis are absent. Mr. McFadden.
Yes.
Webster, yes.
So these would likely be on the agenda for the May meeting of the township board of trustees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny.
You're welcome. Next item on our agenda is the use determination of Blue Star Bend LLC, which is a 5,500 square foot office building in parcel 20-003-039-00 on a 2.19 acre lot in the C2 district.
C1. Part. Blue Star Bend is.
Oh, Blue Star Bend C1, I'm sorry. Applicant is Andrew.
Eric's on the Zoom, but where it's set up, where do you want to set up our easel? Ready? Site plan elevations as well as interiors. And I believe Eric is.
All right. Yeah, thank you, John. My name is Eric Murch of Blue Star Bend LLC. Thank you for taking the time to have us back to the meeting this evening. So we understand that there's still questions regarding the intended use of the facility, and hopefully tonight we can quickly answer some of those. But to start, I'd like to say that, you know, we heard a lot of the comments and concerns from the neighborhood and the planning commission during the last meeting. Worked our site layout and tried to take into account those comments and concerns wherever possible. So items to note from the last meeting, we've removed the accessory building altogether from the site plan, so we no longer have that included. There are lots of questions and comments about the parking. So we flipped the orientation around to put the parking on the front. Obviously, that would require the planning commission's future approval. And by making these modifications, obviously we've increased the amount of space between us and the sanctuary. We've reduced the amount of stormwater retention that will be required. And then, you know, that's just going to leave a lot more undisturbed natural landscape. That was a big topic during the last meeting. So I think you can see, you know, we have taken seriously, you know, some of the questions and comments into that plan. Obviously, part of that, you know, goes into the use conversation. Clearly, you know, this is an office building. It's got 20 offices in it. I know a lot of the questions regarding the use were, you know, what was the accessory building? So just to completely remove that from the site plan and from the conversation, kind of eliminates those questions to begin with. Additionally, John, if you want to flip to the other poster board that's got the interior, during this meeting, we brought additional drawings that show the interior layout completely, so that, you know, removes all questions of, you know, what is in the building. It's not just a shell that you're looking at on a piece of paper from the outside. You can see from these layouts, there's 10 offices per floor. The offices are for professional use to include company executives, sales personnel, project management, and accounting staff. As we discussed last time, additionally includes a small garage on the one end of the building for parking, and then general storage of company property. So additionally, by flipping the building around and putting the parking on the front, it also changed the garage entrance to the Blue Star side of the building. So again, offering more, you know, privacy to the sanctuary neighbors behind us, and you know, minimizing the impact on them from headlights coming in the driveway, people turning around, that kind of stuff. You know, during the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about what our company does at other locations. However, obviously, we're here to discuss what we're going to do at this particular facility. And I think it's clear by, you know, looking at the layout of the interior of the building, that it is clearly an office building, and calling it anything else would be, you know, misleading without justification. So again, I just want to say, you know, on record, the use of this facility is an office building, and we certainly welcome any of your guys' questions or comments.
With the size of that garage, do you have some kind of a rack system? You said it's being used primarily for exhibit storage?
Correct. Yes, that is correct. Yeah. So as we discussed last time, you know, there will be some minimal shelving in there to organize and store stuff, but it's not like a storage warehouse where you'd have rows of racking. You know, 80% of it for the most part is just going to be open floor space. A big part of it is, you know, having the floor space to take these things out, set them up, put them back away after a show or something like that.
This is just a discussion regarding a use determination. Is that correct?
Correct, yes, we are now discussing the site plan.
Correct. Okay.
And that, yeah, and I realize that. I just wanted to bring that up and show it, you know, that we did make these changes, eliminating the accessory building, because that seemed to be driving a lot of the questions regarding the use. So, you know, that's no longer part of our site plan. We have no intention of building that. This is what we're presenting. We wanted to make it very clear, you know, what the use is, so that there are no questions.
I think the site plan is much better than it was before. I'd still like to push it up closer to Blue Star, which looks to be about 10 feet. That's and then I guess another meeting we talk about materials, but we're really here to talk about use.
Yes, I'm just here for use. Okay, so you know, as I looked at the agenda for use, and I appreciate your work in regards to, you know, listening to the individuals that were here on at the last meeting. However, I have to go back to our zoning district intent statements. And in regards to actual use, I understand it is and clearly it shows that it is an office building, which is permitted in C1. However, in our C1 district, local, commercial, mixed use. This district is intended to encourage and accommodate businesses with a smaller market area, with a storefront on the ground story as well as upper story for attached residential units. I think what's really important to me as I look at this, and then again, office and professional services, is coming back to limit smaller market areas, local. Your service is not of a local nature, it's global. And so as I look at that definition, I struggle with this use in regards to local. It's not going to be meeting people going up and down in this town in regards to what you do. So I'm not sure if I believe that this is an appropriate location in the C1 district. It probably is more associated with the C2 general commercial. Because your service is a global service, it's not local. I don't see people walking into your door and down the street on a local or in the township saying, oh, we like your services. I just don't see it. So that's my comment.
Would you, Madam Chair, would you like to hear the comments from the Planning Commission commissioners and have that debate? I mean, versus a back and forth,
Yes.
right?
Ken?
That was my concern when I read it, and I think I have to agree with Ms. Webster. If that's the intent of what we're doing with this, I think it's kind of torture to try to get to this type of resolution. If you consider what we meant this to be.
The only comment that I have about that is in the last bullet point, definition of general offices and services, doesn't refer to government services. That's really what we're looking at, services to bases.
That's.
I've heard it has to do with the local. It's not that, again, office and yes, government, but once again, it comes back to smaller market area, local. I just don't see it.
Well, there's two issues for me. There's this one, which I can't quite wrap my head around, but I'm not here to argue with the zoning ordinance. But the other one is this storage or is this a garage? And it's a very big garage for 2 cars. I think those are, correct me if I'm wrong, those were your 2 points, really?
Yes, the function of the garage was described by the applicant and the site plan as storage. And storage is not permitted in C1. The applicant provided an email March 25th, 2025, stated that the 2,000 square foot space is a garage. We looked at the garage definition, which is a building with overhead doors that's used to park passenger motor vehicles, trucks, vans, and or incidental personal property. We heard that they're going to be parking 2 cars for the CEO and CFO, but otherwise there would be convention booth equipment stored on pallets, moved via forklift and stored there. The garage also is distinguished from a residential garage. We met with our building inspector. A residential garage typically has 12-foot tall doors, whereas this garage has 20 to 24 foot, walls. The residential garage doors for personal property are typically 7 foot tall. And this is 12 foot tall, their doors. So it's and then we also note that the definition of wholesale distribution is more in line with what this establishment does. They sell merchandise in bulk quantities. To retailers, to contractors, to industrial, commercial, institutional, like government or professional business users, to other wholesalers or acting as agents or brokers. in buying merchandise for, or selling merchandise to such persons or companies, so. Granted, they don't keep that merchandise on site, they direct ship, but they're still involved in that type of, exchange. And our definition doesn't say that you have to store the material on site to be considered that definition. You know, I feel like if the garage wasn't a part of this, yes, clearly it's an you know, that is office, it is this. You know, I've done it looking at the township and other offices, there are not those garages included with that, business type.
However, well, again, being on thinking about incidental personal property, if I were another business, if I wanted to have, couldn't I put personal property, because that, again, you're taxed on that, but if it were, I don't know what would be an example, another type of business that they're storing some of their personal property, and because it may be a change of season, so they switch out a summer season to a winter, so then they have to take that personal property and put it into a location. Would they be allowed to be able to do that? If that makes, I don't know if that makes any sense.
I understand what you're saying, it would be. I can't think of that with an office setting. I think we store holiday materials in the basement or in a closet.
If they didn't want to have,
Retailers would have,
they didn't have a basement, I mean, they would have to have some place to store things, so. And if I were going to put for instance, a RV.
that's storage. You
Would
know,
I
that's-
not be able to do that in a C1?
That would be storage, and we don't allow storage in
Okay.
C1.
Okay.
Are you looking for an example of what somebody else who's used the building in a different way?
Well, again, you know, and I understand why you are looking for something to put, as you go to trade shows. I get that in regards to, those are large pieces of personal property. Those booths are large, so I get that.
Well, additionally, if I can chime in too, I mean, we talked about last time, you know, like you were just getting at, you know, part of the storage that was going to be an accessory building that we talked about last time was, like, for instance, the patio furniture that you can see on the end of the building on the first level drawing. You know, somewhere to store that in the winter, the gas grill, you know, whatever, all kinds of miscellaneous outdoor stuff, the landscaping stuff, all which is permitted within a C1. We're not storing RVs, we're not storing other stuff like miscellaneous stuff like that. I mean, this is just general business use. For instance, you go to Dollar Tree, they're going to have a storage room in the back of the building to store, you know, miscellaneous store stuff, extra shelves, extra inventory, cleaning supplies, you know, whatever it is. You know, someone mentioned during the last meeting, a large closet. That's essentially what this is. I mean,
Well, those
this is very normal, I would think, in business.
Not with the 12-foot overhead door and forklifts. We don't see that in C1.
I mean, if we're just hung up on the height of the door, I mean, that seems kind of silly. As far as local, I mean, I don't know how you can get any more local than, you know, we live in the town, our kids go to school in the town, we've been in the neighborhood, you know, for a long time. Our employees are local, we're driving jobs to the community, we're bringing lots of tax dollars to the community. Our employees eat lunch in the community, we go out to dinner in the community. There's a lot of benefit for this community by bringing more jobs from out of town.
I understand what you're saying, but.
Professional, high-paying jobs.
No, sir, in regards to C1, it says the district is intended to encourage and accommodate businesses. It has nothing to do with going out to restaurants and your kids go to school and so forth. It's a business with a smaller market area. That.
it is local,
by
it is a local
commercial.
business. Considering the owner is local, I'm not sure how much more local it could get.
That's you're misinterpreting the word local commercial, you're mixing the word, local. You have to go back to that definition, C1.
I did take a look at the master plan in the future land use section. And on page 10.4, in part, it reads, ensuring compatibility between land uses. It states with proper planning, land uses can be tiered to buffer impacts and orderly development can occur. Examples include commercial service establishments on highway frontage with backlot wholesale storage or office uses abutting a residential area. And that's in reference to ensuring compatibility between two different zones. We have commercial abutting residential. And, you know, in the same note, wholesaling and distribution is not allowed in C1. And I mean, that's clear. But general office services are allowed in C1 per table 4.30, page 4-4.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we're not distribution, we're not, you know, warehousing, we're not wholesale. This facility is, you know, for offices. I mean, I can't make that any more clear. If this was a distribution or warehouse, you know, it'd be 100,000 square foot warehouse, you know, that's a warehouse or distribution. I mean, we're talking the square footage of the garage is only 2,000 square feet, and that includes the mechanical rooms that are part of the garage. So it's not some huge space. And, you know, also, if we were, you know, if there was an issue down the road where, you know, someone was storing an RV in there, I mean, you guys have the power from your enforcement side, you know, to obviously put a stop to that, but that's, you know, that's not what our use is.
I apologize that I used that word RV. We were talking about the height of the garage door and what you would need if you would put such a thing in there. I was not making a comment that you were going to store an RV. That was not the intent of that comment.
Okay. All right, well, it just seems there's a lot of, you know, people don't want RVs stored evidently, so I just wanted to make that clear that wasn't the intention. No, yeah, I mean, the intention of the higher garage door is, you know, to be able to just freely bring those materials in and out.
I understand.
They go in and out. So.
If you look at the main level plan, the garage is 35–40% of the footprint. That's not a 2-car garage. That's.
Well,
I refer back to Ms. Webster that this is not local commercial, which is the intent of where we were going with this along Blue Star Highway. That's the way I read it.
Yeah, well, the footprint, I don't have the square footages right in front of me, but you know, given that it's 2 floors of office, it is predominantly office space, not garage.
Well, I have all kinds of comments about how you could tweak the garage, but again, at the end of today, is this an allowed use per zoning? And that's all we can do here is determine that. And if we decide against it, it goes to the ZBA, right? I assume, if they want to
Yeah,
appeal.
they can appeal to ZBA. Well, and adjacent property owners, anybody could appeal this decision to the ZBA.
Any aggrieved parties?
Any aggrieved parties, correct.
There's some case law about that involving the town.
would anyone like to come up and speak or?
It's not a public. So, at this point, do we have to have a motion?
Yes, you have to make a motion of a use determination.
I would move that this is not the appropriate, in regards to the use, in regards to, Blue Star Ben LLC, 5,500 square foot office building, parcel 20 003 03900 on, 2.9 acre lot in the C1 district, it is not the appropriate use of.
0.19.
Wait a minute.
You said 2.9 or.
Oh, 2.19, I'm sorry, I spoke too fast. That this is not, in alignment with our zoning ordinance for a C1 district.
I'll support that. I suggest a roll call.
Do we have any further discussion? Okay, so the motion is to, that is not the appropriate use within the C1 district.
To deny.
And Mr. Butler,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
No.
Ms. Osmond,
No.
Riley and Stan is absent. Mr. McFadden,
Yes.
Webster is yes. It was a 3-2. And in favor of the motion. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Much.
On to old business. Item A, consideration of a plan of unit development for proposed 30-unit development comprised of 70 buildings, 20 units total, and 2 townhome buildings, 12 units total, on parcel 20-003-028-003. Item postponed on February 11, 2020.
Hey, thank you. Just, I wanted to give 2 updates to this report since it was issued on the 8th. We did receive a, review from the township engineer, so that is in your packet. Additionally, I did incorrectly state the C1 district, this is C2 and R1. So I'm sorry for the confusion on that. That's in the project overview section. But I did want to go through a couple of changes since the last meeting. This is a PUD request, so it would be a rezoning. PUDs are based on a parallel plan, and the parallel plan must comply with the underlying zoning district. The applicant has reduced the total number of units to 30. They removed the accessory dwelling units and one duplex building, or no, 2. Sorry, they removed 2 units in one of the townhomes. So it was a 2 6-unit townhomes, now it's a 6-unit and a 4-unit. They did provide a parallel plan and made modifications to the width of the right of way, the truck turnaround. But I do think it's still problematic because the lot width and lot area in C2, which is a portion of this parcel, is 1.5 acres. And so any parcel, any parallel plan in that area, the lot area would have, that touches it would have to show the 1.5 acres. It's also, I guess I would like the planning commission to provide some guidance on this. Townhouses in C2 and also R1 are special land uses. But in a PUD, you can blend house types. In the parallel plan, I would assume we would only want to see those uses that are permitted in the parallel plan. So only a duplex, the 2-unit building to prove out their density. So if they do go back and make the modification to show the lot area for C2 in that portion, do you want to turn to the parallel plan?
Yep.
So in that red portion, those units would have to be that 1.5 acres and the the width for C two, and maybe they do, but I just haven't seen that, okay, that dimension, so that would be the change, to that one. Otherwise, the applicant continues to, seek the density bonus, of the 25%. They are providing some of the requirements for the density bonus, open space, pickleball trails. Few other changes since the last meeting, they provided a table which shows the difference between the zoning setbacks and their requested setbacks. So for zoning, the front setback would be 25 feet. They're requesting a 7-foot setback for the townhouse. Per zoning, for the side setback on the townhouse, it's 15. They're seeking a 10-foot, and
That's only for unit
only for
30.
unit 30. For the front setback of the duplex, their ordinance is 25 feet. They are requesting 9 feet. And the side setback for a duplex is 15, and for unit 14, it would be 7 feet. So there's some adjustments to those setbacks to think through. We also had a comment about how the parking, they have parking in front of the townhouse and adjacent to the sidewalk, and there were concerns that there was a blending of like vehicular space, pedestrian space, and then 7 feet later, you have the stairs and the townhouse building. Unless, oh no, the stairs encroach into the setback, so it is tight, it's like parking, sidewalk, 2 feet, and then stairs, and then five more feet in the front of the building. We can get a cross section if you'd like, but hopefully you can kind of visualize that street section there. But they did put a concrete pad in to differentiate the parking and the sidewalk area. So what I'm assuming is that there's asphalt road. Then there's a, and part of that, and then there's concrete parking. Is that right? And then the sidewalk. But between the sidewalk and the parking. Is, the sidewalk and the parking have just a change in material from asphalt to concrete.
Not as shown. We put a curb through here to define the roadway. That's what this strip is here. Not a curb. You have to mount with a valley guide.
And the valley gutter is, it's concrete, but you still have the parking, 9 foot of parking, and that is made up of asphalt.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then you have a concrete sidewalk. So it's just the differentiation in building material, but there's no, curb or barrier. If someone were parallel parking, they could back up and drive over the sidewalk.
The sidewalk is raised, so that in effect is a curb. The sidewalk is raised on curb.
Okay. Cross section may, but maybe there is one.
There is, walk, that'll be the walk that adjacent to.
And but within that, thank you. For open space. The open space may include the area along the east parcel line, which is where they're showing, the trail. So they're still showing a trail, and their notes reference that there would be clearing, but, strategic clearing. But they do intend to put a trail there. We have received some comment about that, stating that, you know, just curious, like, is that necessary? Like, could it just remain untouched open space? The trail is private and the pickleball courts are private. And then in terms of the site plan itself, I went through the comments on the parallel plan. I think need to be adjusted. They did update the lighting fixtures. They do have more parking than is required by the ordinance. So we question if the pickleball courts are private, then is parking necessary back there? And any reduction in impervious surface would reduce the amount of stormwater runoff and the need for a drainage basin of that size. We don't have review letters from the fire district at this time.
You also raised the issue of extending public sewer to priority areas. That's not in the plan. That was in one of the reviews. That was one of the criteria that was not met. And I just wondered how important is that, especially in light that it looks like the township has come to agreement to obtain some additional sewer capacity with the city of Saugatuck. And how important is that that issue if we're going to be extending sewer capacity?
I have, personally, I have not seen that agreement, or I'm not aware of that agreement at this time. But that's something I can, perhaps, Ms. Husband knows more about that as a rep. But,
Because that was the issue with auto camp, back
Yes.
when we called it auto camp, is that they had to limit the size of their development because we did not have the sewer capacity.
correct.
And I'm uncomfortable approving a number of units that are going to be tied into the same sewer system. And how many single family homes could we, you know, are we using up the existing capacity that we have until we have that? So I'm kind of hung up until, has that been approved yet, Ms. Osmond, or is it in the works, or?
The agreement with the city of Saugatuck was approved, contingent on approval by the other jurisdictions. And it was a smallish amount of capacity, but we were hoping that we could cooperate with the city of Douglas and get additional capacity. That's not been resolved yet.
So, you know, that's my concern is that, you know, aside from everything else, if we are still limited with our sewer capacity, we still have the auto camp issue. And I don't know if you know that they had to cut their development down by about 2/3 or 1/3, you took about 1/3 off.
Yeah, we only allow one phase to go in at this point, and then with the remaining phase, once we have that capacity.
I guess I'd have to see something from the engineer as to what capacity, even with the new agreement we have, before I could approve this, because I don't want to, you know, there are people who want to build single family homes, and build an awful lot of homes for the sewer capacity that these units would be using.
We can certainly ask the township engineer to provide an opinion on that.
And we're still looking at the issue of looping the water.
Yes, I don't believe that has been resolved.
which is not your fault, it's just, it's something that, you know, we have to keep looking down the road because we don't want to find ourselves in violation with our partners with Kalamazoo Water and, wind up getting into litigation if we over approved or now taxing the system.
In terms of other comments on the report, I don't know where the planning commission sits with the side-loaded garages. So they did provide an updated rendering of the building to include more windows and exterior detailing where that garage, that side-loaded garage is placed. So it certainly doesn't appear to read like a garage, with the updated, drawings.
What's your interpretation of a corner lot? Where is the front? Are there two fronts?
The corner lot has two fronts.
Okay, so definitely then there's a garage on the front of those corner buildings.
Like, 14,
Yeah.
19.
Yeah.
The townhomes have rear loading garages that hasn't changed, since they need a minimum of 4, styles. And I know that there were some changes to the rendering you sent, so I believe you're looking at just those two for the duplexes,
There's four for the duplexes.
okay,
This lower, I was gonna go through everything, but we'll get it a little bit at a time here. So the lower one here, those, that's for units. These two buildings here, those are the side loaded, corner, if you will. The rest of them are either the Craftsman. So these are two of them.
those are the side loaded.
They're all side loaded, but this is a 1.5 story, the farmhouse bottom rendering there, just on those two. Corner with this. And then these are the other two, so a total of 4 duplex styles. Farmhouse, well, bottom trailer, Craftsman, and then the 1.5 stories. So those are the 4 different buildings that would be mixed throughout the duplex area, and then the townhomes here are the farmhouse style as well. That's the 6-unit building. The 4 would just have, portion of it.
Do you have the rear of that one?
No, we don't. The rear of the townhome? I don't think so.
No, it's not even drawn.
Okay, exactly, maybe. We'll see.
That's all I have.
Yeah, if I could go through a little bit here, Lenny's hit most of it. So we've got a letter from sorry, I'm Todd Steiger from Excel engineer. For the project, Randy Gucci here as the applicant. So since the first submittal, we have done, tried to respond to as many of the comments of your staff and the planning commission comments. The primary changes, as mentioned, were that we reduced the number of units from 32, which is more a fire department requirement, if you remember. Anything more than 30 units, according to IFC, requires a second access. So we dropped the 2 units off, and those 2 came out of the townhome here, and then everything pushed closer, more open space along the roadway. The other thing that we did do is remove I think there were 3 optional ADU units. We removed those. So now we're at a total of 30 units on the site. And just to refresh our memories, because we talked a bit about extending sewer to whatever it was, critical areas or, we are extending sewer from Blue Star Highway into the site, and we are proposing the water main down 135th. Currently, we're showing it closing this loop, which is here off from 64th. So we are showing both this offsite sewer and water and this offsite water main to close the system loop. So I mentioned that because I think it comes into play a little bit later in the bonus section. Now regarding I'll flip back to the problem, I guess, or the situation with the parallel plan. This is something that came out in the second review regarding the C2 areas. So the parallel plan is drawn based on R1, the whole thing being R1. So all of these lots reflect R1. And in the C2, there is no differentiation. There's just one lot size in the C2. It's 200 feet wide by an acre and a half. So that's a significant sized lot. And so this area, this funky double triangle, is just 1.5 acres. And there's more than 200 feet of frontage. So standalone, there's one commercial lot there, just to give you the scope of the issue. So if that is going to be a stumbling block, obviously, if we can only have one duplex basically in that C2 area, we've lost a good portion of our comparison, which isn't going to be feasible on the overall development end. So I guess we're looking for your opinion and your direction, but the only way I see it, if that's going to be a formal requirement, would be to request concurrently or ahead of time a rezoning of the whole, of the C2 area to an R1 to make the comparison plan work so that we can make the PUD work. That's just, unless there's another way around that, I don't see how we can get there from here with that C1 area. So I'll just throw that out. So yeah, as mentioned, we now have 4 duplex layouts in one townhome style as well. As far as the engineer's comments, I think we're down to basically one issue, and that is the water main loop. And Randy can expound on this a little bit, but he's been trying to work with this neighbor here for a water main loop. This is not the right layout now. We'll flip to this. Here's the water main that the engineer would like us to loop to, the one that is in 65th, sorry. There's just a little piece of it right here. Is this the sanctuary maybe? I'm not sure what that is. Okay. So this would be I guess the ideal one of these two to come across and tie in and close that loop. As I mentioned, we are closing this system loop here currently, but
So you're in negotiation with the people there?
well,
Or
I've been in contact with them. They are no longer responsive, and I don't, they basically said, well, we don't want to give you this. So,
okay.
So that's an issue. That's always an issue when you come to someone and ask for something. And so in the engineer's review, basically said we may need to look at an alternative location for a loop. I don't know what that means. We haven't discussed that with him. The only other thing, we could come in and come back out to the same line. It's not as ideal as this would be, but yeah, that is an open issue.
Wouldn't it help there, I mean, this is really an engineer question, but would it help if they're on the system now? Wouldn't it help their pressure if they had, it would be an improvement to their water pressure if the system's looped?
It's not so much pressure as it is reliability and water quality.
Okay.
If you have a dead end, sometimes the water sits in it too long, and that's one of the that's one of the concerns. The other is if you get a break, do you have two sources?
Right.
To where the whole development goes out if you have a break or not. The water pressure in theory is the same, static. Now, fire flow would be a little different. You might get better pressures during a fire event. So, yeah, so that is the only issue I think that we're facing here with engineering side of things. So as far as the planner's report, we talked about the parallel plan. There was a comment about the parking areas on the street facing garages of the duplexes, possibly overlapping a sidewalk. We do have 23 feet there to park a car. 18 to 20 is a normal parking space. So we do feel there's plenty of room to not have conflicts with the sidewalk. Open space. A little different than, actually, I highlighted the open.
Can I just clarify that a portion of that parking would be in the right of way, right, in the easement?
It would be within the private road easement, yes, the parallel for sure, and then a portion of those, yeah, would be in the easement itself. So the total open space, total open space currently is at 43% of the site, 3.92. Now we have to net out some things. Initially, we just netted out 50% of the stormwater area, which is 0.2, which puts us at about 40%. The planner's comment was that we should remove the 40-foot strip here, and I removed the narrow strips, the 20-foot strip here and here. If we do that and still take 50% of that space away, we're at 33%. The minimum requirement is 25. So we do have open space in excess of the 25% minimum when we net out some of those areas.
There's a note that 50%, at least 50% should all be contiguous open space.
Yeah. So that, I mean, this is the area that, well, it's all contiguous, right? Because it's all connected. But this area here is the area that would meet that 50%. Okay. And
Does
it's
that
not,
meet 50%?
what's that?
Does that meet the 50% requirement?
Yeah, this space here does.
So that's
Of the 50% of the minimum.
of the
Of
25.
the total.
25. Yeah, that's only
Okay.
like an acre, a little over an acre. There's I think 1.2 acres is 25%. And honestly, this trail here was an attempt to show that our open space was not just passive. We do have trails through here as well. So I guess we leave this up to you guys. If you feel that the trail is not as beneficial as, not disturbing any of the trees in there, we can remove that. It's not that important to the development.
Okay.
So it is a trade-off. Now you might have people walking back there, and if you like your privacy, maybe not have that. And yeah, the intent is that if there's a large tree, we're gonna wiggle around it, but any brush, stuff like that would need to be removed and maintained so that the path doesn't get overgrown. So I'll leave that decision, I think, up to you if you don't mind. So then as far as the density bonus discussion, so we certainly meet the variety housing, which is a 10%. In these on-site amenities are private, granted. The pickleball is private, the trails are private. The sidewalk along 135th, however, that is a public right of way, that is a public sidewalk. And my read of item 3, I quite know how to read it. I read it 10 times now, I still don't know what it means. But it says, or creating a network of trails throughout the community. So I don't know if the combination of the sidewalk on 132nd and the internal trails meets item 3 or not, because they do say in the first part, of, it's public trails and paths. So I'll leave that up to you. Extending public sewer to priority areas or looping water main systems outside of the project area. I contend that with what we're doing with along 132nd alone should meet that requirement. Providing open space above what's required for PUDs. We've shown that we meet that criteria. The last thing would be stormwater. So the stormwater that we're providing there in the corner is a retention pond. In other words, it does not have an outlet to the creek. It relies totally on infiltration back into the ground. In my opinion, it does the same things that such as items, the bioswales, rain gardens, installed wetlands. It does the same thing for the central location. The other maybe are decentralized design, but all of those don't address. They maybe address stormwater quality and recharge into the ground, but they don't address the flood control. You can't provide the 100-year or 25-year storm in a bioswale. That's just something that the water runs through. So anyway, I would contend that this particular type of stormwater does meet the intent of item 6. So I think in my estimation, we're well above 25% bonus. But that, again, those are things you need to decide on. Lighting, it was said that it wasn't provided, but it was provided on the utility plan, but the street light detail is on the utility plan. The quick regarding the parking. So really, we're only providing 15, I'm going to say, extra spaces outside of what would be dedicated to every unit, in their garage or in front of the garage. The spaces 7 along the front of the townhomes, those are strictly visitor spaces. If you lived here and had let's say maybe a non-family visitor who would tend to come through the front door, the front doors are here on the roadside for those townhomes. So those visitors would need a place to park, and that's what those spaces are intended to provide. The spaces in the back could potentially be used for pickleball, I suppose, if someone doesn't feel like walking. I'm not sure why they wouldn't walk if they're going to go play pickleball for the exercise anyway, but that is the intent for those. And we do have several one-stall garages on that within those townhomes. I think we might see some of those residents use those spaces, even just not necessarily frequently, but if you think about it, if you're husband and wife living in a one-car garage and someone needs to leave before the other, that's the type of thing that we see those spaces used for too. Just that logistics of getting people out and not having to go move your second car so they can get out. So again, yes, we could remove some of those. I wouldn't suggest removing all of them, but really those are the only extra spaces that we have for the whole development.
And we're reduced also.
What's that?
We're reduced from
Yeah,
the previous submittal.
Yeah, we had 20 areas more. I think we probably are down 50% from what the original layout had shown on those spaces. Yeah, and then I'm not going to debate the architecture and the side load garages. I'll let Randy do that if you have questions on the architecture. But I at least personally feel that's I work on a lot of these. It's a fairly unique solution to not looking at all the garage doors. You know, all the units, and you also end up eliminating one driveway that comes out. You know, you're sharing every other unit are sharing a driveway, so you'll limit the number of driveways that come back out to the street. That's all that I have for right now.
Can you comment on, are you intending to have these as short-term rentals, or would there be something in the master deed and bylaws about rental?
It'd be prohibited.
So you'd have something like with a minimum duration for
Yeah.
rental, like a year or?
Probably, yeah, just. Our other projects, we have something in there so someone can run them. I mean, say a job gets moved to Japan for 5 years and they don't wanna sell their house. They can, you know, they can go live in another country or whatever, and we've always done it by annual approval by the board.
That was a question from Chairperson Eileen.
Yeah, but we can't, unless it's in the deed, right? We as a planning commission cannot really stop that because it's not part of our purview, is it? Because where in our ordinance does it talk about short-term rentals?
It would be something that they would offer in their master deed and bylaws.
Okay, but if they would choose not to do it,
Yeah,
we would highly suggest them not to do it, but we can't say, well, then we deny your PUD, we can't.
correct, yeah, you can't deny it on that
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah, okay. I was just wanting to be clear on what I understand about short term. Is it appropriate for me then?
And
Well, I've already issued, the thing, I'm not prepared to. I need to get the comment from the engineer because of the question about sewer capacity. Which is going to be the question I ask of every development that comes through here until, and maybe we just require that every project, has a letter from the engineer that we have the water and sewer capacity to, approve this development. And hopefully the office, when people come in to just say, you know, this is an issue that, we can't approve if we don't have capacity. So that's where I'm kind of standing right now. I would like to, I think postpone would be to get an update from the engineer, especially in light of the new agreement that's in the works.
Just so you know, we did supply him with the flow.
Like I said, there's nothing directed towards you, it's just that, you know, we have a limit, so. It just, if you violate contracts, bad things happen, even attorneys get involved. And I can say that because I am one.
Cindy, there's really no determination yet of when that might be resolved. Is that correct?
I believe that the city of Saugatuck was going to consider the agreement yesterday. But I haven't heard anything from Douglas.
So it's an unknown.
I have a few.
Please.
Okay. You brought up the question of rezoning, if in fact this, because of these little corners of the C2, would it be appropriate that we should consider that in regards to rezoning? And again, understanding the parallel plan and what they're doing, it's a little confusing to me. But would it be appropriate that we should consider his thought about rezoning those particular areas to an R1? And then some of the other issues would be resolved. Would that be appropriate?
Our ordinance says that if the applicable base zoning does not permit the desired use, a base district rezoning shall be necessary.
So tell me, what is it within that he?
I would have to go get my master plan, future land use plan to see what our future land use is for that C2 area.
Yeah, I have a future land, I can show that, okay. My other question is associated with the use, as we come back to looking at open space is realizing that those trails and the pickleball are private. And how that figures into the open space is there was on your page 3 in regards to bonus density. These are not public. They are private.
Yeah, so that's why number one isn't met.
Right.
It's that number 3 that, Mr. Tybee mentioned was a little confusing, whether providing paths, trails, greenways, or other pedestrian and non-motorized transportation facilities accessible to the public and connected to or creating a network of trails throughout the community.
So to me, it's like, well, I don't know why we would consider the bonus density when it has not been met. Unless they're eliminating the public, the pickleball and the trails and,
Or they're making those public.
yes, unless they're making those public.
But each of these items is a 10%
Yeah.
bonus.
Yeah, so if they don't,
They don't all have to be met, just which ones are met are
Okay, so
10%.
right, exactly, so they meet number 2, of course. Number 4, extending public sewer to priority areas. And or looping the public water system outside of the project area.
and I know they're still working on that.
Yes, and I would need to get the opinion of the engineer on that one, so I put a question mark on that one. Providing open space above what is required for PUDs, so PUDs require, I believe, 25%, you're providing 33, I think you said, so it was to be determined, but yeah, according to that, breakdown, and what you've described, no, I haven't analyzed all that yet, but it sounds like that may be met. So that's 1, 2, 3, possibly. The stormwater management, I would again want the township engineer to weigh in on that. I don't believe that, retention basin or detention basin is the intent of this standard. I believe this standard really speaks to low impact development, a community that is all, managed by bioswales, rain gardens, not piping to a retention. But again.
So I have some things in there that we would still have
Some
to,
gray, yes.
Well, and just a point, I guess, if our base density is 26, if we can get to that point where everyone's comfortable with that, we only need 15% bonus to get to 30. We don't need anything more than that, so that's 1.5 of these
Yeah.
7 different points, not.
And you've got 1 and probably 2.
So if we took the triangles and made those R1. I mean, just looking at that looks like it makes sense. I think what Denise was talking about.
I asked the question,
Well, I know, but I mean, if we're going to be looking at a PUD, I agree with you, this parallel plan sounds like something from Star Trek. I think I would, if we're going to go ahead with this and we have the other questions that we have to have answered, I'd like to look at the rezoning to make it coherent, so if we're going to get the bonus, or if that helps them with the bonus by having that clarified.
I think it just helps with the density in general.
Okay.
But the other questions were, as I looked on page 2, the planning commission shall discuss and determine whether 2 of the below list apply to the project. I have trouble finding 2. 1, innovation and creative and land use planning and development to create more desirable living, shopping, and working environment. I didn't see that. Maybe living, but shopping and working, I didn't see that. So I put a no on that, number 1. Creative and imaginary approaches to the development of residential areas, especially through the complementary mixture of housing types in one development. Sure, I'll give you that one. So I got one. Conservation and preservation of natural and cultural resources. And I didn't find that one. Efficient use of land by facilitating well-designed arrangements of buildings, streets, utilities, and other features. I don't know, is that efficient use? I put a question mark on that.
Well, one of the things they're doing that is atypical, but possible, okay, for maybe efficiency state is that they are allowing portions of the driveways and the other drawings, portions of the driveways, the sidewalk, well, mostly the driveways to be within the 66-foot easement for the road. So that means that they are letting, cars can park within that easement area, which is potentially more efficient, if you think about it, versus getting to the 66 and then starting the driveway dimension and then the setback.
Okay, then I'll give that one. All right, so you got two. In regards to the setbacks, I'm really struggling with why we would give that much of this, the front setback townhouse 25 and go down to 7. I'm really struggling with that amount of setback change. It's not like they're only asking 2 feet, they're asking for a lot. So I struggled a little bit with that one. In regards to the side with the unit 30 and unit 14, okay, I get that one. The other ones I struggled with.
It's a lot.
Yes, I thought it was 2. Also, in regards to the setbacks, they talk about the driveway where the vehicles could overhang the sidewalk. If the sidewalk is meant for walking safely, I'm not sure why I would park a car in the sidewalk. First of all, that's not allowed, but I struggled with that a little bit. The amount of parking, again, the parking with I get that. I've been in some communities and several where visitors are able to park not on the road and where they create a problem with other people passing so that you're able to get them off the road itself. And that parking by the pickleball, I think that invites, it's no longer, I don't know how you're gonna tell whether there's private, public is private.
How are you gonna stop people from
Yeah, I
playing
don't
pickleball?
quite get that.
Because they are.
By the parking spaces there, that invites that. So just as a thought, and again.
But you could go to your friends and park there and then walk to it.
Well, then I could park.
People invite their friends to play with them and they have to park there.
Yeah, so I'm a little concerned with the amount of parking, but I get it. It's not that I get it. So those are the only comments that I struggled with a little bit with. The rezoning was an interesting comment. When you have that portion that I didn't think about that, but.
Here's your master plan book right there.
Yep.
If I could just make one comment, to address us to the leaders. I think it's important in this particular development to realize this is a condominium. So you own the inside of the building, everything else is general common, if you will. So there aren't a lot lines here in these setbacks that we're talking about, 25-foot front. Those are set up more for if these were lots and you were putting this duplex on a lot. And so then your setback, whatever it is, 25 feet from that sidewalk, and whatever the side yards are, there are no lot lines in here. The only lot lines are the exterior. And what this allows us to do is have a compact design. If you want to stick with those setbacks, what you're going to end up with is something that looks like our comparison plan. is the big, not that there's any, we could come in and do this, don't get me wrong. And we're hoping that that's not the direction this goes, because there's no open space here. And there's all these really long driveways, because those are back at the setback. So I guess you have to realize what you're getting. You're getting a condominium and you're getting a compact design, which gives you 4.3 acres of open space, preserved trees. That's the trade-off, one of the significant trade-offs, so.
I get that one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Could you get 30 units on the parallel plan? I like it visually better, it just feels less dense.
You can get. No, you can get 26 units if we were to rezone this to R1.
Yeah,
You know, if this is the direction that it went. Yeah, you can get 26, that's the base density. that we're
yeah,
talking
right,
about.
but could you get 4 more on that plan?
Well. I don't wanna be a. I don't wanna. Townhomes are allowed in the R1 as a special land use. We could come in. Do all townhomes consider special land use.
There are 3 unit. Yes. There are 3.
Understandably, you will get more units on here if these were townhomes than they are duplexes. So. I'm not saying we're gonna do that, but you could get 20% more, 30% more.
It's just less pavement, right, in the parallel plan. There's at the back drive, got a pickleball court. It's set back from the neighbors more, I think.
No, they're closer to the neighbors,
Oh, are you?
mostly. or they
Well,
could
I'm
be.
talking about the east side.
They could be, yeah.
But that's all retention, actually.
Uh-huh.
The future land use shows the C2 as commercial. Or future land use. I can pass that one.
But would it be because of what they're suggesting is it's not large, a large piece, we're not talking about a large.
Correct. And it's adjacent to residential, I mean.
Yes,
Just
even
letting
though
you
I
know what it's
understand that, so again, some of that, the C2 is still there, it's just that very small, what is that, 6 acres?
And give it, it's 1.5 acres. It's
Right.
C2.
It's just 1 point, this,
Oh.
yes,
The whole thing.
the 2 of them, this is an unusual way to do zoning. I think,
Yeah.
you know, typically municipalities do not like split zone properties. And this corridor thing, split zones, how many properties along there? So typically it would be, we're gonna, you know, the zone will. This one, and this one would be C2. So that's something you guys did, not me.
No, it's not.
So, yeah, I don't, yeah. I don't see a C2 use there unless someone buys up all the properties along there and combines them into one somehow. That triangular C2 piece is worthless.
It makes sense to be R1 because the one triangle inside is landlocked anyway.
Well, unless I create an easement. You don't have.
Well,
to
it's
have-
all one parcel, so it's not landlocked.
Well, I
But
mean,
yes, if it were.
If they were
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
C2. Which it is.
Yeah. I think, so rezonings require a public hearing. All even the PUD is a rezoning, so this. It can track together.
Well, I don't want to make extra work, but if it would be appropriate to do that. For this particular, that would be a area of discussion is that, should we consider that? Certainly in regards to rezoning, when you take it to a residential, I always like to see some of that, especially when it's less of residential. I think that there's an advantage to that one.
Well, especially if you're adding residential next to other people that are already there. I don't think, there's not really a conflict.
Don't mind me.
So if we did consider rezoning to R1, could that be So not, could it happen at the same time as the rezoning for the PUD, I guess? is my
Yeah, I
question.
think it could get in the paper. The notice could be sent out next week.
So moving ahead, so he's got some idea of what's happening. We need the opinion letter from the engineer about the sewer capacity and the water looping and the retention basin. And then you want to check as to whether, we should notice this out for public hearing for rezoning, assuming, I mean, obviously the engineering questions have to be answered in a positive way first. But if that's true, we can work with him about rezoning it and taking the two triangles and making it all R1. Is that the feeling I get?
And the fire district review.
Yeah, right, pardon.
And then they asked about the trail. Whether that should be removed on the east side.
Well, since the trail language, I think is directed towards somebody who's going to have a segment of their parcel that they can add to an existing trail. So I think your own private trail doesn't qualify, so
Especially if you're cutting down trees.
right, so the simple question from him is don't put it there, don't, leave the trees alone, you won't get yelled at. So, you start cutting down trees, bad things happen.
I have to question the fact that the trailheads start from the public sidewalk too, if they're not public. They dump out onto the sidewalk.
So it would depend on like what is south of it or to the right of it. As far as, is that going to be a trail that can be used in the future? And I don't know enough about the parcels, what's.
I don't disagree with that. As soon as you bring it out to the public trails, now you're inviting people again. I think we could just meander this back to our own internal system. It'll prevent us from taking, any more trees down near the right of way, and it'll discourage people from.
Do you want the trails for marketing?
I don't know,
They're one of the more used items, I think, in the neighborhood that you can offer. So yeah, it's desirable to have some trail there that people can roam around.
But you could do it over by the pickleball, not by the creek.
Yeah. I
I
think,
think that would be preferable.
and this is one of the narrower areas, so
Right.
you're right, I think that's a good call, and I think that is too, you can. People have dogs and they like to walk,
Well, again,
things like that.
And we don't have sidewalks.
So we know what I'm saying.
In the community.
And if there's a decent place to walk, people are going to go do it anyway.
that's right, you're not in a gated community, so. People will walk down your road and think there's a trail, so it does become public anyways. So thinking about how that works in your community. I mean, people walk down our private road all the time.
Right.
It's not gated. So. I would agree with Jackie that certainly putting a trail that's connected to a public road, you're inviting them anyways. So keep it internal, that you possibly will reduce that if they want to not really invite a lot of the public.
Just think for the neighbors and for the people that live in the buildings on the east side, I wouldn't put one out.
No, I
It's an area.
hear you, okay.
So what do you need to do? I need a motion to
Postpone.
postpone and then, well,
We still have time. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
These points.
Go ahead.
I think the architecture is much better, more cohesive than it was before. So we're fine with that. I do think the pickleball parking is kind of silly. And we've decided to get rid of the east walking path, which is good. It's probably good. I do like the other thing about it. But I can have a particular reason.
The by right plan?
The parallel plan, yeah, it just feels a little dense, well, it is less dense, obviously. You got to.
I think it's great that you left 57 feet of woods on the east side, but when you get down to the retention pond, you have no required tree buffer at all on the southeast corner. And then that looks like the retention pond is less than 20 feet from the lot line too.
And we just changed our ordinance that those have to be outside of the setback, like. If there were a setback.
Well, but you're gonna discuss that with the engineer anyway, that's one of the issues that we. Is that a positive or a negative?
Well, I think I don't know if the engineer will be able to clarify whether this meets one of those 6 requirements, but that was really it. But if we don't need it to meet the requirement, I don't think we need to ask more either. We don't at this point. Because that's more of a subjective analysis, I would think. But you're saying that in this case, it's a 20-foot setback.
Yeah, 20-foot setback.
We can see if we can get that fixed. Now, we won't have a trail here and we won't have a trail here, so we'll have a little more room to work.
Is it able to be deeper and less broad?
Well, in this case, because it's infiltration, you have to stay a certain distance above the groundwater.
It's not.
So we're, it is infiltration, so we have to stay almost 4 feet above the groundwater. So it really can't get much deeper than it already is. But it's sized per the Allen County Drain Office requirements for 100 pond, so that's the right back in that. But we can make that adjustment too. And this, just so we come back to this. I mean, this whole area is wooded. There's a creek that runs through here and the homes are on the other side of the creek. So we're really not close to anybody right there, or ever will be. But yeah.
Where are you putting the retention pond? Is that wooded at this time?
Yes. Yeah, the whole site is filled in wood. That's why any area that we can put into open space is a preservation of the existing forests, which is one of the benefits of these.
My only comment about the architecture really is the townhome. Can you show that elevation? I was just wondering if there could be any variation in the windows. I think they're counted, there's
I'll let Randy.
7 identical windows in that building, just looks more opposite building like than it does residential.
Well, there are a lot of gables and you could also change the material as they pop in and out, but you're right about the windows, you could gang them up. And say it's
Just
a living room area.
Visual comment.
Yeah, I think we certainly could, so, yeah. There's some of them could be grouped, or I mean, they are same size, but it's same proportion and, yeah.
Is this the south side?
This is the roadside.
This is
So it's the
the
north side,
east.
East side.
east side, okay.
We haven't seen the alley side, but hopefully you can bring that up next meeting.
You made a determination about the side garage.
Yeah, if that meets the intent of the ordinance, we limit the frontage to 40%. And so they're doing the side loaded.
I like the side loaded. I don't know whether it meets the ordinance, but I think it helps a lot.
Does anyone else have any comments that they would like
Cindy
to?
was going to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cindy.
I just would like to concur with Ken about this the utility services, the water and sewer. That really has to be resolved before we keep spending money that might not go anywhere.
Definitely have more knowledge than many of us here at the table.
Some, but not much.
Do we want to, I think at this point, do we take a motion to postpone, is it to postpone? Subject to the criteria that's been listed here tonight? To give this gentleman a chance to get with Lene, and Lene a chance to get with our engineer to find out what is possible and what is not. And if so, I'll make that motion.
Agreed. I would support that motion.
Can't move forward.
Do you want to be able to time and dates for them, or just until we're ready?
What do you want, just to postpone to the next meeting or until? You receive the,
Until we get the application, I don't wanna bind them in, but, if we get that application, we can get it noticed and have that rezoning hearing. The next time.
you have to talk with the engineer and get.
Yes, I do have all that
So
stuff.
it may not, it may or may not come up to the next.
Right, so my motion is, until it's ready to be brought back.
Either call
No, you think we were,
voice.
What's
Yes.
Aye. Aye. Voice vote. Yes.
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Hold on.
Should. You have any presentation?
Yes, I guess on Zoom, perhaps we have the author of the conservation plan. On Zoom, I do have to leave at 8:30. Don't know how long the presentation will take.
He is not.
Oh, they're not on Zoom, okay. Well, we will invite them to our next meeting, to present that conservation plan. We do not have the author of that plan joining us at this time, but, we can certainly make sure that they're invited to the next one.
It's worthwhile.
I'm not qualified to speak on it, so I don't want to do this.
I assume it's Barry.
Here's mine, right?
Yeah, I would.
I think it's gonna be coming to the meeting.
Well, I had thought you might be joining us on this, call, but, provided the next meeting.
I'm sure Jane will coordinate with Mr. Monick and if it's possible for him to be available, he will do so.
Yes, it would be great to join us. Yeah, but it is in your packet, so please take some time to review it and familiarize yourself with what's in there.
There is no additional correspondence outside of our packets, is that correct?
Correct.
Township board report.
I'm the commissioner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going, just as, I mentioned about the bylaws, I'm going to meet with Rick Lene, next week, and we're gonna talk about that, and which ones maybe we need to discuss, and whether it will come up to the next meeting, depending on what's on the agenda with the following, but, look at our bylaws, we did it 3 years ago, and there are some things in there that I noticed that we're not really doing, that we probably need to clean up a little bit, so, that is forthcoming, whether it's the next meeting or the next following.
I just took a class.
On bylaws,
It's that we should-
on following procedures and so forth, yeah, so, again, minor, some things that we need to discuss, but, so I'll bring that to you, whether it's next meeting or the next following, we'll do it soon.
Any other commissioner comments? Okay, Moving on to the township board report.
As we mentioned earlier, the board did approve the agreement for the sewer capacity and the repairs to Maple Street. There is a financial benefit to the city if they give us sewer capacity that we will participate in the cost of the road construction. Also, at the other board meeting, the board did adopt the Lake Shore Overlay Zone District as part of our ordinance, so that will be effective 7 days after publication. Those are the big things that affect the planning commission.
And that moratorium that we had, that will be
expired, but
at the time that the actual ordinance takes effect. Okay.
Yeah, I believe Lori, that was advertised either Friday or Saturday.
Morgan.
More Saturday.
Okay.
It's gonna be in the paper tomorrow.
Okay, so those 7 days after that.
Okay. Okay, and then the moratorium
Will end.
and, okay.
Staff and project updates.
No update, really. I did email the owner of Best Buds, so, just to say, you expire May 20th, or, are you intending to renew? And I think it was about a one-line response that said, we're still trying to make it happen. So.
But it's incumbent on them to come to you to file an application to extend by May 20th.
I don't even have to reach out, right? But I did. I think it's a courtesy. I want to make sure that
Great.
people know.
Because we as a planning commission, once it comes forward, we can revoke that. They have no extension. I mean, this is the second year, so we could say no.
Well, yes, you could, if they submit a request for extension, you could say yes or no. If they don't submit a request, it just expires.
And so if they would come in then say, I want a building permit, they would be denied the building permit because,
You gotta start over.
I need to.
okay, I'm just
That's
clear.
good, that's good to have on record too, thank you. Yeah, that's the case, and today is the deadline for May 20th. Now, I give, some grace, right,
Yes.
of course. If this applicant comes in, they're, whatever, we have grace period built in, but that's where I'm at.
Okay. I'm just curious, do they understand and need to reapply for an extension? There's no way.
I did say that your use expires, so, I can reply to that and say, if it's not renewed, your use expires. And you would not.
I think I would do that email just so
They're pretty
if he comes in on June 10th and just said, I didn't know.
Right, and they did provide a letter for the first extension.
They did, yeah, they even
So
had
they
an
know,
attorney
they
write it.
know the.
They got an
should
attorney
know
write it.
the process, they should know.
I'll do that.
And there's no update on Blue Star Brewery, Auto Camp or Oasis. And the first building permit was issued for the Parnell.
Yeah, maybe a couple since I even wrote this, but yeah.
Four permit.
Yes.
Then issued. Yeah, great.
And they got their eco permit.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
So they have the Oasis or I can't whatever they call themselves. So we should see some work done on that building.
They're doing it right now.
I would know that. I wouldn't even know that.
On the roof.
I didn't.
The
I never see.
hotel roof, the former hotel roof, right?
Yeah, I don't see anything over there, so I don't. And are they gonna remove those dead trees? They have a bunch of dead trees in the front there, those pines or whatever those were.
Maybe eventually, I imagine.
Okay, just that.
Yeah.
Okay. That concludes our communications. And now it's time for a second public comment. Please.
Sarah, will keep you a couple minutes.
State your name.
John Helmer, 262 Street. I happen to live just to the east over Gossamer Creek to the PUD you've been discussing. And all of us neighbors of like-minded. First of all, I want to thank you guys. This is a really thoughtful, I think, positive discussion about that PUD. My main concern, I want to reiterate, which I mentioned 2 months ago when I came, but some I don't think, you weren't all at that meeting. In 2005, the Planning Commission approved a PUD for the same property. The board approved it in February of 2006, a little while ago, but they all had a very stringent condition that a 25-foot buffer be left along the eastern side of the property, which is adjacent to Gossamer Creek. That is my overriding concern, which is why I'm completely against the native trail, because that would go through the buffer, then you don't have the buffer. So that was positive to hear today. Move it or. I am concerned. I lose track of the names of the plans. The plans that I prefer is the colored one with the smaller box for the retention basin to the south. The long one, retention plan, would basically obliterate the buffer again. So I don't see how.
The by rail.
Oh, that's on the parallel.
I lose track of the names. So the one with the smaller box is great. I'd like to see the retention plan moved somewhere else on the property, especially if the rezoning goes through. There could possibly be space for it. A remark on the rezoning, I think that's a great idea. Just so you know, the current C2s, there are 4 homes total in that area. So it's
You mean
already.
adjacent to?
It's a residential.
It's residential now, we're.
Yeah, there's 4 homes, including the owner of the property.
Right, but if in fact those individuals, let's say the one right there on, the corner of 65th and 135 would sell and be demolished, it would have to go to a C2. Even though it was a house initially, but now they're in a C2, so they would have to meet the C2 zoning. Like Blue Star.
Yes.
There is no house in that corner.
Yes, there is.
Very small house.
It's a white house, and
Very.
But we do allow single family in C1 and C2.
right, so
They
they would
would have
still
to
have,
have the acre and a half.
yes, so they have to meet the zoning or whatever that is.
And it's my understanding, one of those houses is the house where they talked about wanting an easement for water and sewer. My understanding is that property is not
Is
talking.
that the one, the 2 houses down?
It's the blue chalet style
Yes,
house.
okay, I know which one it is.
My understanding is there'll never be an easement, which is throw that out because of and I agree, until the water is solved and the sewer is solved. We gotta go slow. Let's see, I think those were. Yeah, so again, I applaud you for postponing it and these considerations. Please, please, please save the buffer. Speaking for myself and all of our neighbors, we had this fight once before and it went in a positive way, so we can do that again. Thank you all very much. It was worth waiting.
No one on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom wants to talk, please raise your hand. Going once. Going twice.
Nope.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting is.
Yes. Looking at it. Thank you. Very interesting. Nice job, folks.